Welcome to the Bangor Public Library, and thank you to the Maine Monitor for reaching out for us to host this event here tonight. And it's great to have them here. A couple of little bit of housekeeping things before I pass the mic on to Stephanie, and we'll be going. So first off, most important is the bathroom key. It'll be up back on the table. Restrooms on this floor, down the hall, down to the other end, and turn left and see them. Please bring the key back out with you. They lock behind you. So, that'll be great if you see that. And also, I just wanted to remind everybody, Bangor Public Library is a full slate of programming and events all the time. We have a new exhibits in all of our galleries right now. This one is by the Maine Veterans Project. They'll be here Saturday, along with the other artists on display. They'll be here Saturday afternoon at 2, if you'd like to meet any of them. We're starting a new series, the first of which is Digital Legacy Management. Who's going to take care of your digital life after you move on from this world? That made me think you got a little piece of scratch paper and sat everything down. So Hannah Cyrus, our technology staff member, will be leading that class, and we have a few more to follow up after that. We have a new program here as well. We're hosting Bangor's ASL Social Hour. So if you know anybody that's hearing impaired or deaf or would like to be going to communicate with that group of people, have them check our calendar. Everything is there. We also have the creative labs, and with a partnership with Lights Out Maine and the Maine Arts Commission coming in to do a creative career lab skill builder here on February 24th. Then moving this around the state for artistic people to come in and learn what resources are available and what kind of support and help and encouragement they can get in what they would like to do. So I think that's the end of that. Check our website, sign up for our newsletter either by paper or email, and I'm going to turn this right over to Stephanie.
Thank you, Candace, as well. And thank you everyone for joining us tonight, both in person here and virtually. Thank you to the Bangor Public Library for hosting us in this beautiful space, for moving the puzzle. I know that is probably a big undertaking. My name is Stephanie. I'm one of the editors at the Maine Monitor, and for those of you who aren't familiar with us, we are a nonprofit, nonpartisan news organization focused on accountability journalism here in Maine. We give away all of our news for free, both on our site and on our newsletters. If you aren't signed up yet, you can sign up. We have a list in the back, or you can sign up online. We also have some other materials in the back and some free tote bags, so you can take those on the way out. We are a very community-oriented newsroom, and we like to do live journalism events like this when we can. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to our religion reporter, Sean Scott, who's going to be moderating the panel tonight.
Thank you, Stephanie. As you said, my name is Sean, and I am religion, politics, and society reporter for the Maine Monitor. I report for the Maine Monitor through Report for America, which is a national program that kind of places reporters on underserved beats. So we started, as I moved here in July, and that's kind of when I got started on the religion beat. So I have been spending the last 6 months learning a lot more about the different faith communities in Maine and how faith kind of influences life here. One of the things that I quickly learned, and that everyone is quick to point out when you talk about religion in Maine, is that it is one of the least churched states in the country. And so that was a pretty quick learning moment for me to figure out how that works. But there's still religion organizations impacting everything across the states in various ways. I learned about that especially last fall as I started reporting on government shutdown. At that time when SNAP benefits were paused by the Trump administration, food pantries across the state kind of had to feel the impacts of that. And that was at a time that these food pantries were already struggling with, I think, more than $1 billion in funding cuts. that had impacted their operations, whether that was through cuts to programs that were used to provide food to states for their hunger relief organizations, or one program in particular that allowed states to purchase food from local farmers for hunger relief efforts. As I was reporting on that, faith communities were a really important part of it, just because of the role they play in food distribution. At least a third of the food pantries in the state are housed by churches or religious organizations. And after I was done with that story, that just got me kind of thinking about, well, what are the other ways that religious organizations in particular are working to meet the social service needs of their broader communities? So that was the kind of impetus for this panel in particular. I will go ahead and introduce our panelists shortly. But before that, I will say we are going to spend about 45 minutes or so on questions of the moderated panel. And then if anyone in the audience, both online or on Zoom, has questions, feel free to ask those. If you're online, you can ask at any point, and our director, Nika, will write the question down, and I will take those at the end for our panelists. So we are very excited to be joined by 3 panelists today, maybe 4 panelists. I don't know if you can see on Zoom, but we do have a dog with us. So I'll start off, we have Anna Phillips. She is the coordinator for Greater Bangor Area Street Pastors. She's been in that role since fall of 2014. She also sits on Dignity First, which is a nonprofit organization that addresses homelessness in Bangor. And she is joined by Ellie, her dog, who is also a street pastor. We also have Jocelyn Briggs. She is the shelter manager for Hope Haven Gospel Mission in Lewiston. That organization provides food, shelter, and clothing for the underserved in the Lewiston and Auburn area. And Michael Smith, the Chief Program Officer at Catholic Charities Maine. He oversees a variety of programs for them, including prison ministry and hunger relief in Aroostook County. Collectively, their work stretches from Aroostook County to Androscoggin County, and they both work with and serve people of a variety of different faiths, meeting their needs. So today we're going to be focused on how faith influences social services in Maine, the challenges that these organizations and others have faced in the past year to meet those needs, and what they're looking ahead to in 2026. So with that out of the way, I guess as a starting point, I'd like to have the 3 of you kind of introduce yourselves and the work that you're doing more in depth. I guess we can start with Anne.
You can start with Ellie, but she struggles with English, so. I was born and raised in Maine. I grew up in a small rural coastal town, and ultimately ended up doing a master's degree in biblical history and geography. I was in pretty conservative faith traditions through most of that process, but I came to realize through my travels and through my studies how much place and where you're from affects how you view the world, and that what an impact that has. And since being back here after finishing my master's, I ended up as part of the crew that was asked to read the book about street pastors. We were in the height of the bath salts epidemic at that point, and just looking for something to do that could be a concrete way to reach out and help the community. And the answer seemed to be, let's go show people that someone cares about them. And so we connected up with this organization that was started in London over 20 years ago and had a process and has training, and they require at least 4 churches of different denominations joined together to start a new area. So we worked through that process and started our first patrols in 2014, and I've been with it ever since.
My name is Jocelyn. I was born in Puerto Rico. I grew up in Massachusetts, and then in my adulthood moved to Connecticut. I moved to Lewiston, Maine in 2012, so I've been here almost 20 years now. It was an adjustment. I came from a fast pace to kind of slow and steady. So it was an adjustment. I was working doing medical billing, and then I was asked if I can help at the Hope Haven, and I went from medical billing to full time about 7 years ago to manage Hope Haven, and it's been an adventure, and it's been very rewarding as well.
All right. So, Michael Smith again, and that is my real name, although there's a few of us out there. One joke or story I have about this is that one of the Michael Smiths was on the no-fly list. So we basically half the country, right? We were to go in the back room, take a while, no, I'm not that Michael Smith. So, but in any event, I'm also a Maine native as well, and on later years of my college, I really got much deeper into my faith. So I did, on graduation, did a year of volunteer service that we did in community with others, different faith backgrounds. And my volunteer placement within that was in Catholic Charities of Buffalo, actually, of all places. So I ended up taking that 1 year volunteer service and staying on for another 4 or 5 there. Got married and then moved back to Maine in 2012 or 2011. And started with the Catholic Charities here, and in various roles, different capacities of programming, all of which I'll get into a little bit, but all of which are very varied and great ways that we work around the entire state. And so in this role now, I'm just kind of blessed to be able to work with and support the great staff that our agency works with, so they can help those needs. So I'm a little saddened to be further away from the direct service, because that's where I started, and that's where there's a lot of joy to be had. But I also know there's a lot of need, and I feel like when some of those roles be able to have that take place as well. So it's a both and rather than more.
Awesome, thank you all. So I guess our first real question, not that that wasn't a real question, our first big question for you guys is, over the past year or so, we've been operating in this environment of decreased federal funding for social services, as well as more competition for grants for social services. I know that each of you has different funding model and a different level of need for financial support, but I was wondering if you could talk about how your organizations have worked to meet those challenges, or if you're not relying on those funding streams, how you've been able to kind of meet the monetary needs that you have to carry out your ministries.
I can start. We don't have any federal funding ourselves. We're small budget. And so we look to the churches that are part of our volunteer community to support that largely. But we can see in the community what the effects of that are. Other organizations that haven't been able to fully fund programs, and where that kind of pushes people out around the edges and things like that. So it's not so much a direct effect on us, but it's definitely an awareness of how that trickles down, and people who need the extra support don't get it. So we see it, but it's not, I guess, personal for us.
It's the same for us. We don't get any federal funding nor state grants. So solely donation based from individuals, the community, corporations. So our numbers have gone up a bit, but it hasn't really impacted us personally, but we have seen the impact it's had on the community. It's harder for the community to get their needs met.
Remember before Michael said it, do you find that there's a different level of donation that individual people are willing to make? Has that changed at all for you? Or is it still, has that changed for you?
That has changed. We've seen bigger donations less frequently, but smaller donations more frequently coming in.
So I guess I have a lot to learn from you too, because We have a large chunk of state and federal funding, so the fluctuations that have taken place, and here certainly to talk about our food bank up in Aroostook County. So there's several sources. I can cite all sorts of names like TFAP. I don't know if most people know food stamps, and CSFP. There's a lot that were left in limbo for us. So a lot of misinformation or changes in information and delays. So, you know, even up to we had a contract that was supposed to start in 10/1, and it was 2 days before we didn't know if we were going to get the funding or not. So are we keeping staff or we're not, or we need to pivot to help these individuals getting it or not. So there's a lot of fluidity, uncertainty there that really made things very difficult to try to even move forward with a sustainable direction because we didn't know the way that things were going to necessarily plan. Thankfully, most of those did come in, and it's provided them stable. But in the meantime, the real benefit that we got out of that was increased communication. So between donors, between our food pantries, between the Shepherd Food Bank, between town officials, we all were able to rally around to try to problem solve on something that thankfully wasn't there. But we, as part of that process, created the infrastructure of greater communication. So, you know, it's kind of like disaster services in the sense that we're blue skies right now, thankfully, but we have that network to be able to continue to talk more through. So that's been plus and minus there as well.
Gotcha. And you mentioned the kind of not knowing necessarily when things are going to come in or how it's going to work. Did you at any point had it impacted the availability of at the pension network that you guys had in the state county, or were they able to get similarly throughout the year?
So thankfully not at the point at which we would have had to reduce now. That being said, over the past several years, that has drastically been reduced by the cost of food itself and just the movement of the product. So sure, it wasn't a huge drop off like we were anticipating could happen, and partly because of a sort of delayed reaction. So the time at which a lot of the federal funds came in, we had enough stored up physical product in the warehouse to last a period of time. Now, if it had gone beyond that, that would have been a much different scenario. So it was sort of this tightrope situation that we had there. Yeah.
Gotcha. So Anna, I want to turn to you specifically now. I know that street pastors, when you guys started in 2014, you were kind of ministering to anyone who was on the street on Friday nights, whatever services you could get them, regardless of what their sex was. And we have talked before this about how over time you have come to have a more direct focus on the unhoused and people struggling with addiction and more. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about kind of the changes in the population that you're working with and how you kind of adapted to who is on the street that you can work with.
Sure. So I would say throughout 11 years, there have been a few different shifts. There was a notable shift kind of pre-COVID versus post-COVID in terms of like who's going out to dinner, who's walking around downtown. We changed our hours. Originally, we went out starting at 9 o'clock at night and finishing around 1, and now we start at 7 because there just haven't been people out as late. There haven't been people out doing as much stuff. And we've seen a shift in when we first started, there were no overnight warming centers. It was like get into the 2 shelters or not. And now we have warming centers as well. It's changed a little bit. And then we have seen a shift away from, talking to people who were walking back to their cars after dinner, talking to people who are, outside on the stoop taking a break from their, caretaking work for someone. To a lot of interaction with the unhoused, and especially this summer, we had Camp Hope that was out behind Hope House that was dispersed in the late spring, and so all summer, people in the parks downtown, it was a lot of like, okay, we're going to take a whole case of water. Everybody grab a bag and take some. We never gave out that much water before. But it was hot and people were out in the park and they needed water. And so that's what we did. And so that's kind of in the way each local street pastor area sets up based on what the needs of the community is. we also shift, and respond to what's in front of us, and we try and be prepared for those things. So is it more water? Is it more hand warmers? Fortunately, as the colder weather comes, our warming centers open up, so people have places to be, and sometimes we'll stop in and just, visit and hand out our Tootsie Pops and, see how people's spirits are. Fortunately, we're not finding a lot of people trying to sleep out in the weather right now. But it definitely changes based on what the conditions are, who's around, and what the needs are.
And Michael, turning back to you for a minute, Catholic Charities has a number of different services that you guys do, whether that's prison ministry, addiction recovery, or the food pantry network in Aroostook. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about how having all of those different services under one roof complement one another, and can you talk more about the logistics of getting food out to people in Aroostook County as such a rural area of the state?
Yeah, so again, Catholic Charities does serve the entire state. That's about, if I were to ask probably in this room, if you heard Catholic Charities, everyone's hand would go up. And then say, if I were to then ask, what do we do, or can we name 3 or more services? Everyone's hand would go up, probably except for Jane, because she works with us. But outside of that, and that's really because we try to take a local level. What does it need in a particular part of the state? So what we do in Aroostook County is different than we're going to do here in Bangor, which is different than we'll do in Lewiston, Auburn, or Portland. And then that would be different than what we would do, there'd be Catholic Charities in New Hampshire, which have a completely different set of services, or California for that matter. So from an identity standpoint, it's not something easily grabbed onto outside of the fact that we're there to kind of meet those local needs. So what we're doing really in Aroostook County is addressing the food part. So we're the only food bank that up there that will cover Aroostook County, a little bit of northern Penobscot here, and then we're over into Washington County as well for part of it. And we service about 30 or so food pantries. And it ends up being about 1.5 million pounds worth of food throughout a year, just to kind of quantify that. But we also really are utilizing it as a distribution site. So the food will physically come up into the county, and some of that could be from Good Shepherd, some of that can be from community partners. We actually have another food bank that in another part of the country that we work with that will help kind of glean some of the products back. We could work with local farmers to get at the end of the harvest, and glean some of their fresh fruits and vegetables and a way to be able to distribute those as well. There could be trucking companies that come through that have something that they're not able to sell or bring across the border that will work. So there's various avenues with which the product will come in, and then we'll work with those to get out. So again, we've got our food pantry network, but there's about another 15 or so community partners. This could be school districts, this could be the hospitals up there that will have some community food networks as well. And again, so it's so far away, we're using our industrial sized freezers, refrigerators, warehouse storage space to have that come up. They may be paying for it, transporting it up there, but we got a place to get it, and they can come more locally, only drive an hour or 2 to then bring it to their location. So that's another aspect of it. But when I started working in this program, the piece that I was really sort of enamored by or attached to was our ability to create resources to get more food. So most food pantries around the state will get community funds, and local funds are absolutely needed to purchase food. And a lot of our pantries will do that as well. But we generate our own funds as well to help those pantries get even more to be able to distribute out. So we have several thrift stores up there that we will utilize to be able to, one, help people in need in the community to get either low cost, or in certain cases they can get free product to help take care of themselves. But those proceeds then go back into getting food, of which we buy and then just freely give out to the pantry as well, so they can augment and add to the capacity they have. So it's just really great, not only to have infrastructure there that we have, but then the ability to go above and beyond and get even more to the funds that they have. So it's a really phenomenal need. We also have the county-wide contract to serve those aging adults with a seniors pack for each month to be able to pick up. So about 700 or so of our seniors get that as well. So it's really a complementary service, sort of unique, again, with the thrift store adaptation they add on as well. So Good work on
Awesome, thank you. And then Jocelyn, for you, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about, obviously we're in winter right now, we just had our foot or more snow and the 0 degree temperatures, and winter is an especially important time for people to have shelter, like Anne was talking about. I was curious if you could talk a little bit more, both about Hope Haven's shelter model and how people come to you, and then how your need and demand changes throughout the year.
We get full in the winter quickly. We are a 32-bed facility. We have 16 single men beds and 16 women beds. However, the women bed kind of gets divided again with single women with children. So we're also the only family shelter in the area. We do allow couples to come in, however, they kind of get separated. So the female with children go on one floor and the men go on a separate floor. There's a floor separating them. We have cameras with audio in the hallways and outside the building, so we can keep track of everything and everyone. As soon as the middle to late fall starts hitting, our beds get full. Almost immediately. So when this last storm came, I had no beds with. Our dining room, our dining room opens 3 times a day, 7 days a week. So they were able to come in, eat something, get some coffee and get warm for about an hour and a half, before they had to kind of raise the weather again. We seem very fortunate that we have no families in our shelter right now. It always heartbreaking when you see a family with children in a shelter. I was one of those families about 8 years ago. So it is stressful, it is frustrating, it is overwhelming to not only for yourself, but for your children. So I always say it's a lucky time when we don't have families in our shelter. So right now we have 16 men and 16 women. We help them getting in touch with a case manager, finding a case management service that they're comfortable with. So if they come to us and say, hey, I'm with this case management service, but I don't feel comfortable with them, or they're not really meeting my needs. We'll help them find another case management service that they'll feel more comfortable with. We do counseling one-on-one. We'll meet with them at least once a week. Whether it's myself or my security director or our executive director, they're always meeting with one of us at least once a week, so we know, hey, what's going on? Is there anything they need from us to help you reach your goals? And we also do Bible studies every Wednesday for an hour from 6 to 7. So, and you're not trying to convert anyone, it's more of a, let's show you what else is out there. And that's how I got saved and how I became and helped my faith was that Haven. And we also do chapel every Sunday, and we at times visit Faith Baptist Church in Auburn a couple of Sundays a month. So we try to not only give them the help they need, but also teach them and help guide them to where they need to be.
That kind of leads nicely into the next question that I have for all of you, which is how has your own journey of faith influenced your approach to social services, but also your organization's approach? And what does it mean to address any of these needs from a faith perspective? So I guess, Jocelyn, I'll start with you on this question because you already touched on that a little bit, but can you expand a little bit on your own personal experience with faith and how it led you to this job?
It was a bumpy road. I've always believed, but I wasn't a believer. I've always prayed, but it wasn't the right prayers. And coming to Hope Haven helped me stand fast in my faith, start growing in my faith, and that's helped me help our guests kind of just stop, take a deep breath. You don't have to do this by yourself. And when I tell them, I've been there. You don't have to do this by yourself. There's someone there that's always has your back and will help you get to where you need to be. I can say it and actually mean it because I was there. So, and there's times some where I guess I'll be in my office and they'll come and not, hey, do you have a minute? Yeah, come on in, and I was reading the Bible and I'm not understanding this word, or what does this mean, or this is what I take it to mean. So it's helped me not only understand myself, but it's also helped me understand the community and the people we're trying to help. And help them kind of take a foot in the right direction and tell them you're gonna stumble, you're gonna fall, you're gonna get frustrated, you're gonna get aggravated, you're gonna argue. But it gets better. You're gonna weather the storm and someone's gonna, and he's always gonna be there to help you get through the storm if you just let him.
I'm gonna add nice with that same question, and then I'll tag on for you as well. I know that you guys are an explicitly ecumenical organization. You have to have at least 4 different faiths. So how does kind of working with people that may have differences in their faith background influence your organization's mission?
So I would say from a personal perspective, I have kind of the 3-pronged approach. When I was getting my master's degree, I was living in the Middle East. I was introduced to the Orthodox Christianity that was there. And one of the things I remember, and I don't know who said it to me, and I don't know where to find the info, but they said, like, Orthodox Christianity has this idea that the job of each Christian is to bring whatever little piece of heaven they are able to the place where they are staying, whatever that means. You know, does it mean plant a garden? Does it mean paint something pretty on your fence? Does it mean give somebody a bowl of soup? Whatever it means for you to bring something that's a little bit better to the place where you are. So that's one piece of what this is about for me. And the other things are when I present about street pastors, I talk about the verse in the Bible that says to seek the good of the community that you're in, and that Jesus tells us to love our neighbor. And so those are the pieces that we can do by being present on the streets. And for us as an organization, we are from different churches, but I will say the kind of foundation is that they are churches that have a Trinitarian understanding of who God is. So we are from different churches, we have different traditions of worshiping and different ideas about some things, but there is a foundation in those differences that we can focus on when we come together. And it's powerful in some ways because people say, what church are you from? And we say, oh, we're from different churches. Like, no, but what church are you from? I'm like, well, I'm from the Congregational Church, and he's from the Baptist Church, and she's from the Catholic Church. I'm like, what? You guys don't even say the same things. How do you get along to do this? You know, and we can say, because we decided that we're going to join together to love our community, and we want to be here so that we can be here for you. And so it is, sometimes we have really interesting discussions, but our focus is not on what divides us, it's on what we can do together with the core of our faith.
I will tag that on for you, and I will add on to your portion of it. I think you guys have kind of the largest base of people that you're helping. It's not religiously based to get your services, so I'm interested in that side of it, especially for you, in addition to your own kind of how faith is influenced for you.
So for me, service was something that was always part of my life. And coming to a faith later on, something that really augmented that in a way that just helped make it be palatable. And I remember being very frustrated and angry and wanting to make change, and yet feeling like it was way beyond my capacity, right? And so coming into a faith to help sort of concretize that, to realize that you can let go, that it's not something that you can and should be able to do everything, but it was sort of freeing and being able to move forward with where I was at. So for me, that personally was a really helpful process. Something with an agency, like I said, with Catholic Charities, we serve and employ people of all faiths, no faiths. Everyone is to be served and to allow to do work with us. But our faith certainly directs sort of who we're serving and how we are serving and why we are serving. So I think of like the parable of the Good Samaritan in the Bible, of which there's an individual on the side of the road, and there's someone that stops to take care of this individual. This is, a normal society, two people that would not normally talk to each other, interact, and not only just says, oh, do you need some help, and they physically go and take care of, and can I do more? And so I just view that as something that we as an agency try to do. We're going out and looking for the people that kind of, this would certainly fit your mission, right? Going out and literally looking for people that that others are not even noticing, right? Just walking right on by. We could see that probably on any sort of street corner as well. So making sure that we recognize the human that's there in front of us, right? And that's a real value for what we're doing. And then certainly looking at Acts 25 as a directive for us in terms of feeding, what we do in the county, giving drink, clothing, visiting the imprisoned, sheltering, welcoming strangers. So those really help direct, again, who we are and why we're serving people we do. So it really comes back to we're trying to make difficult decisions, mission orientation, just going back to who are we as an organization, who will we call to serve, what do we do with the limited resources that we have to move forward with. So it's something that's very core in that essence of decision making processes.
And kind of going off of that for all three of you, and whichever one of you would like to answer, I'm curious how being in Maine, which is by a variety of metrics, one could reach these church states, whether that's people actually going weekly or self-identifying with the faith. Does that influence the work that you do in any level, or is it not really a factor when you're thinking about the day-to-day operations of the works?
First, I think for us, it tends to be, again, going back to making sure clear, consistent communication. So making sure everyone knows that we serve everyone. Gosh, I hate, and we still hear it all too frequently. There's ones that we do frequently, that, oh, I can't come to get services to you because I'm not Christian or I'm not Catholic. That's not the case. So again, for us, it's more of a branding or creating that awareness. Again, we want you to come and get services. Please not self-exclude. And then probably subsequently on a donor or a grant-based side, again, really letting everyone know, oh, wait, Catholic Charities will be, you can't get these funds because you don't qualify. Well, we service everyone, and just sort of reiterating that component so that they feel like that it's going to those that are needing the community. So those are just more re-awareness kind of pieces that we try to do. So that'd be the two main areas for us. And how you have time.
No, that's good. I think when our trainers came over from London, they were like, the church is going to be welcome on the street. And we're like, okay, but this is New England. This is a little different. And they're like, no, you're gonna be welcome. And it is very interesting that this sort of response of, well, it's about Advent time that, you came out here. The doors are open. Churches are very happy to welcome people in, but people are not like ready to go in, or they don't. And especially in a place that is so unchurched, it is foreign. It is a foreign language. It is a foreign culture to walk into a church. So if you want to have an impact on your community, and if you want to be present for people, you're going to have to walk outside the doors. And so we do that, and I think there's an advantage in having a smaller Maine community when we say, hey, let's get a bunch of churches of different denominations together. We know that we have the strength in numbers by doing that, and if we had a mega church of 10,000 people, we wouldn't need to go looking to 5 different churches to get enough volunteers to go out on Friday night. We have to work together. It's not an option. We need each other.
Yeah, that was one of the things I had to get used to when I moved to Maine. Connecticut, Massachusetts, there's pretty much a church in every corner. If not every corner, every other corner. And here it took quite a while to find one where I felt welcome and was open. And we've had some of the same issues at our mission where they're like, well, this is a Christian gospel mission. I'm not a believer, and I'll tell them, okay, what does that have to do with the needs that you have? Well, you're a Christian base, yes, but that doesn't mean we won't help you. We'll actually help you. And they'll say, well, I'm looking for a church, but I can never find one. I have a list of churches in the Lewiston Auburn area on my desk, and I'll tell them, well, where do you live? Okay, well, this one and this one are closest to you, or this one and this one are closest to where you're mostly at. So I started doing that because they're like, well, I can never find a church. And I'm like, they're here. You just have to kind of go off the beaten path and find one. So we've tried to make it easier for our guests and our community to be able to find the churches that they need.
Awesome. So one of the biggest story in the state over the past few weeks has been the increased presence of immigration enforcement officers. And I wanted to touch on that because I've spoken to many different faith leaders who are involved in different immigration services over the past couple of weeks. And I was curious for each of you, to what extent do you work to meet immigrants' needs, and did the increased federal presence over the past couple of weeks impact your day-to-day operations in July?
It didn't so much as impact as our day-to-day operations, but we did notice that our food pantry and clothing closet services, our numbers went down for a couple of weeks. And we're like, oh, you know, what are we supposed to do with all this extra stuff now? We did manage to give it away, but we did notice that some of our numbers for we call it our giveaway room, which is a combination of our food pantry and clothing closet. Some of those numbers went down. They're starting to pick up again. But it was a little heartbreaking to see how far our numbers went down and how many people in the community we weren't able to help because they were in fear of coming out.
We generally go out on Friday nights, and I think Bangor has not been as much of a target. I will say, my understanding, I know we have some immigrant populations in the area, but I think until fairly recently, they had to stay closer to Portland, partly because of all the work Catholic Charities does with incoming immigrants and our requirement that they live in a certain radius of where those services are supplied. So I don't think we have as many up in this area. And so it hasn't been something that I've been seeing, you know, right around here. And it could be that I'm not in the right place to see it, but I think it hasn't had as much an effect right here so far.
So as it relates to the food bank and the pantries in the county, thankfully, we really impact there, certainly within the large swath of the agency, services that we've offered. Yeah, a lot of people are staying home, which we've seen in the news, and So that's changed our aspect of a lot of the work that we're doing is remote now, and even trying to find and connect with others, churches, our own churches, those in the community to be able to go out and meet people where they're at in the homes. You know, they're not grocery shopping, they're not getting the medications that they need. So that's a real area that we're seeing. Obviously, those that maybe are working aren't going to work, and now we're seeing subsequent fallouts of the lack of income for that. So we're trying to work through that. And then there's also been the re-verification process of those that were legally brought over since 2021 by the last administration. So we are trying to help those with whom we're assigned to work to make sure that they understand what that means, using our immigration legal services to make sure that they have the right documentation prepared and set up for that next steps. So knowing your rights and language that they understand. So it's been a lot of let to go meet them where they're at, physically as well as just informationally, so that they're able to better cope and understand what the next steps.
Awesome. Well, we're almost at audience questions time, so I'm going to ask my last question very quickly. I'm interested for each of you as you look ahead to the rest of 2026. What are the biggest challenges on your radar or new opportunities that you're thinking about in terms of the way that you're leading this year?
I think not so much for our organization specifically, but the Bangor area has a housing crisis. It's been ongoing. It hasn't been affordable here for a number of years now. And there's been a big push to try and work on that, to try and get apartments and, you know, tiny home places and options available, because it affects not just the people kind of at the lowest income level, but it creeps up as well. So I see, you know, hopefully more movement in that direction. But in the meantime, there are the people who still don't have a place. And as we get into spring and summer, the warming centers close and people are going to be out more again. And so we probably will be interacting more with that, you know, more protein bars and snack bars and things like that, just to give somebody something to have for the moment when we interact with them.
Whatever works. I think the thing that we're looking forward to in the county this year is we're going to be installing a new freezer. So we've had one for a number of years. This one's going to be about 3 times the size and going to be much more energy efficient. And yes, food is getting more expensive. And yes, the newer product gets more expensive, but we found, again, a lot of the communities responding in ways in which it's sort of this feast or famine. And so sometimes we will get things that are extremely large capacity and we need to take it. We never say no. Well, where do we put it? How quickly do we have to turn around to get it back out? So having this larger space allows us to be a little more thoughtful, planful around. We can always say yes, and then we have a place to store it, and when and where are we giving out versus, all right, here's a whole bunch, and I don't have the freezer space, so let's literally turn around today and inundate the pantries, of which they may only have these big freezers to take it on, and they've got to give it out to the people that need right away to keep the sort of integrity of the whole chain. So this really just allows us to actually be spread things a little bit longer. So we're looking forward to that sort of capacity building there.
We've had that situation where we've had an 18-wheeler drop off a pallet of ribs. I don't have a lot of walk-in freezer space. So as they're unloading a truck, I'm on a phone calling other agencies and other shelters.
Jesus, it's myself here.
Can you take about 3 boxes of ribs? I'll even drop them off, you know, and then I'll put them in the back of the truck, put some ice on it, and I'm driving around trying to drop them off, and I'm like, okay, we only have another 40 minutes before we can't use this stuff. So let's go. And I'm like, okay, you get on the phone, you take that list. And it's nice because then it's like, wow, we have what we needed. But at the same time, it's like, we haven't put all this. I don't have enough space for this. And the one thing we're looking forward into in 26 is hopefully our services numbers stay steady. They don't go up, hoping people don't need as much, which might be a little naive, but the people are able to take care of themselves and they don't, I know how hard it is to go to a food pantry and say, I need help from my family. I know how hard it is to go to Catholic church and say, hey, I'm struggling with this, can you help with that? You know, so that people know that we're there when they need us and they don't feel, because I know I did, they don't feel shame in having to ask for help. It's okay to, I still struggle with that at times, though. But it's okay, I've learned it's okay to ask for help. And we're there, even if you just need a shoulder to cry on. You know, we're not just for the dining room and the food pantry and the clothing closet and the shelter area. There's times when people come in, hey, can I speak to your pastor? Absolutely. You know, even if you just need someone, hey, can you close the door? I just want to scream here for a minute. Absolutely. You know, we want to be able to be more involved and help the community more, not only with clothing and food and a bed to sleep in, but with anything they would need help with.
Awesome. Well, with that, I think we're going to get to audience questions. I will say now before I forget, thank you all for your time and thank you, Bangor Public Library, for hosting us. And yeah, we will go around for questions. If anyone in the audience here has a question, I will bring the mic to you so that you're audible on the stream. And if anyone on the stream has a question, you can ask it in the chat and people will let me know, or or asking in the chat is the best way to do that.
Sure. Hi guys, I'm curious, for each of you, in your own words, I'm looking for something that's not like an organizational mission statement. How do you see your work fulfilling the Great Commission?
I hope and I hope just being helpful, serving. I've been there. I've been so down and out that I wasn't even at the bottom of the barrel, I was below the barrel. And I've weathered a few storms. And I'm hoping that with that, I can help someone through theirs.
I think for us specifically, we're there so that if people have questions, if they want to know about the faith, we're like out there. And we do stand ready to answer those questions. So, being a presence and in a sense, trying to be the gospel as much as, you know, maybe stand there and preach it out loud, but be available for the conversations, but also demonstrate that as we walk downtown.
So I'd say we'd be somewhere in that we use our actions to show what our values are now. That being said, I think what I really like about Catholic Church is that we look at the whole person, and we're not pushing faith on anyone by any stretch of imagination, but if we've viewed every person as having a faithful component to them, and should that be part of what they want for their well-being and recovery or next step with life, by all means, that's something we are not going to be part of, right? So that's something we can build in. So that's sort of a big part of what we do and why we do it.
Thank you. Thank you for everything you do to make communities safer and better. I'm representing your communities of faith so well. I know you encounter a lot of mental illness and a lot of addiction, and I'm wondering how you look at that and offer help.
So yeah, it is a reality in our community, right? Everywhere we go. I think the approach that we're taking, and certainly Others are as well. As we learn more, is certainly more of a holistic or community approach. So we certainly have a aspect that we might offer, which could be at times housing, and then we're offering some case management, but then we may have another group organization that will offer, medication or psychiatry. And so again, how are we taking care of the person as the center and creating all those services around them? Now, we may be the coordinator, we may be providing part of those services. Certainly down in Lewiston, we'll have a shelter there as well for those that are working through. So it really varies, maybe based upon where we are around the state and what services we have, but really trying to create a one-stop shop for a person in need, but realizing that one agency typically can't provide it all. So how do we get all the other community resources together to get those in place for him or her?
Yeah, we try to help them build a support system, and find the services they need. Whether we have to drive them there or to sit on the phone with them till someone answers the phone on the other end and say, hey, we have a person that needs these services. Unfortunately, we don't offer those services. If we do, what can we do to help them get the services from you that they need? So just kind of building that support system and kind of keeping the guest and the person as a person, not kind of breaking them apart and, oh, well, you are just a mental health patient, so we're just gonna, no. There's more to the person than just their reflection. So helping them build that support system and get the correct services they need and kind of hooking them up with the services that they need.
In our case, if it's Friday night, there's not necessarily some place that I can direct someone in that moment. So it's gonna depend, if it's a case where someone is dire enough that they need to be taken in somewhere, there are places we can call. There are helplines that we know about, but sometimes the best thing we can do is be willing to sit and listen. When somebody doesn't have anyone else to talk to share with, maybe they've shared their same repetitive story 40 times to their next door neighbor and they're done and they don't want to hear it anymore. So, we can be there, we can do that. And so while there are resources that I can tell people about in the community, be like, okay, Monday morning, if you need assistance, go here, and they'll try and get you case management or, something like that. I don't necessarily have it at my disposal in that moment, but we do try and signpost people to places where they can get extra assistance beyond what we're able to offer.
Awesome. We have one online question and then one more in person, and I think we will be at time. From one of the viewers online, they have asked, what is the cooperation between your faith-based orgs and state services? So what interaction do you have with Maine?
With us, it varies. It depends on what our guests and the visitors that we get in need. If it's a state service, we'll get them the state service. Thank you. If it's a local service, help them get the local service. So it depends on the need that we're trying to assist them to get done at that time. So there's times that we don't interact with state for a couple of weeks, and then there's where we're on the phone with them pretty much every 5 minutes to help someone get their services. So it depends on the needs at the time.
So we deal with the state quite a bit in various capacities. We have several sections of state funding that will come to us to provide services. We certainly work with them in terms of the sounding board. We just did our strategic plan not too long ago, checking what you see as needs coming forward. We want to be in lockstep with some of the resources, with the needs as well, that we can help respond to or filling gaps where they're not available. They certainly reach out to us on numerous occasions when they have finding something that they might have some bottom line for or a need for that they can respond to, try to collaborate with. So it can really vary, but it's something that we certainly keep a close pulse on as we try to do the good work that we do, because again, it's nothing that we can do alone.
Yeah, this is one where, that's not the space that we're working in so much. We do try and be aware of the resources that are available in the state and in the area, to direct people if need be. But it's not something that we tend to interact with directly.
This will be our last question for the event.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for doing what you do. My question is, what do you see your role in communicating upstream, either to the established funders, the state agencies? I administered GA for a number of years, and I always got the feedback from people that are coming from Hannaford that saw someone with a voucher and criticizing them for the choices that they purchased their food. And I see at my own church what gets brought in on the Sunday, Giving Sunday, when you bring in food. It's not always the healthiest food, but it's food that can last, like they say, Twinkies can last for decades. Well, people get criticized for what they're eating, but if they don't have a fridge to take it back to, then they have some limitations there. If they live in a 3-story walkout and they've got 2 little kids, they have to be pretty strategic about what they bring up the stairs. And you folks, I'm guessing, see that a lot. And do you see, as part of your ministry or your mission, to educate your congregations and those people that are trying to do the right thing, but don't understand maybe what the right thing is when it comes to how people are living at a very marginal existence? Do you see responsibility, or do you have a vehicle to do that?
Yeah, so I view that as education or creating awareness. I think that's an absolutely essential part of what we do. I really view services. You've got faith, you've got direct service, but you got, you could use a strong term like advocacy, if you will. And that can be creating awareness within our own agency around what other services are going on and what that means. It looks like, again, looking at the person as the center and all the different things that are affecting your life. It's not just one aspect necessarily. That can be working with our network of parishes around trying to mobilize them to live out their gospel mission to serve people in need and help them understand what that means and what that looks like and how to go about that. But I think we also have a duty or a mission as well to work with those within our network. So that can be the state, that can be the federal government, to again, not push any particular party, but again, just issue based. Like, what are we seeing? What are we encountering? What are some realities, and what do we need so we can better serve those people that are in need? So we do that within Catholic Church, but certainly connecting with Catholic Charities USA as well, as a way to look at a larger network of voices. So yeah, Catholic Charities have served 30,000 people, but across our network, we have tens of millions of people that are having this food insecurity issue. That's a larger voice that people might want to respond to. So really looking at it in multi-level ways, you're absolutely right. There are a lot of awareness that needs to go on and continue to go on to make sure that people are understood.
And there is, with us, we're fully based on donations. So whether it's our kitchen or the food pantry, everything is donated. So we get a lot of pasta, a lot of bread, a lot of peanut butter, and just a lot of unhealthy stuff. So we try to kind of, okay, if you take a cake, how about we don't have any fresh, but let's kind of throw in some vegetables with that. And we also use the Good Shepherd website, because you can put like, okay, I have some walnuts, or I have some green beans, what can I help make it as healthy as possible with the shortest ingredients? And we'll do that with Google as well. Okay, we have this and we're trying to make it as healthy as possible. How can I mix this that normally doesn't go together? How can I mix it to make it as healthy as possible? And then we'll just hand out the printouts. We've had some good luck with it. Some of it's like, no, you really shouldn't mix those two. So we do try to educate them. It's not as easy. price of everything's gone up. Incomes have become very, very limited. There's times when it comes to a choice, okay, am I paying my electricity? Or am I gonna pay my rent? Well, if I don't pay my rent, doesn't matter if I don't pay my electricity because I'm not gonna have anywhere to go. Am I gonna pay my gas bill or am I gonna buy groceries? And if I do buy groceries, where am I gonna cook it? So it's been a challenge to kind of help the community figure out where they can go for certain services. 211 is a godsend. There's times I'm like, okay, I'm not sure about this one, so we'll call them and get assistance from them. But mostly trying to help the individual meet their needs as a whole, not just part of it.
Yeah, we don't have a specific plan to do that, but I will say the more people I have who come through and volunteer, and we're allowed to take people as what they call observers, they can just come for a night. And then they get to hear the conversations, they get to see, you know, somebody who's sitting there who's like, first this happened and we got what I did, and then this happened and then I lost my job, and then this happened and, you know, we couldn't pay for the storage unit anymore, so all our stuff was auctioned off, and then this happened. And you can start to see that it's not all about people making bad choices, that life comes to get people, and that there probably are ways we as a community could provide better support. And so I think making those connections and taking people to see and experience that is one of the best things that we can do to help them understand.
Awesome. Well, thank you all, the panelists. I appreciate you all taking the time to be here. Thank you to the audience as well for coming out, both in person and on Zoom. I think we're going to leave it there, and the video of this will be on the Maine Monitor's YouTube channel.
It'll be on the website.
It'll be on the Maine Monitor website if anyone would like to watch it or send it elsewhere.
And on the
And on YouTube. Awesome. Well, let's give the panelists a round of applause.